Good morning, friends. In the series of second lesson on the best Christmas present in the world, let us go to the next part. But before going to the next part, I want to show you a small video clip based on the event that is highlighted in the story. This is actually a documentary video, a very short video. You should watch it, and then we will discuss. Watch it first.
In the winter of 1914, World War I had been raging for 5 months, and countless soldiers on both sides spent Christmas in trenches all over Northern Europe.
1914 saw millions of armed men facing each other on a line from the English Channel to Switzerland. They were dug in. They were very close to each other. They were within yards of each other. The Germans on one side and the French, the British, the Canadians, Australians on the other.
On Christmas Eve, German soldiers placed candles and Christmas trees on top of their trenches. Then a few of them began singing Stille Nacht, or Silent Night in German.
The 19th century produced a number of German carols that were in translation. And so both sides, for example, knew Silent Night. And so when German troops started singing, French and British, Scottish troops started answering.
The artillery fell silent, and the two sides shouted Christmas greetings to each other.
We have numerous examples of troops meeting in no man's land, sanctioned by low-ranking officers who thought this was a useful opportunity to scout, maybe to recover some dead bodies, but allowed all kinds of exchange of gifts, different foods. Apparently the British wanted sausages, and the Germans wanted French wine, and British canned beef.
The break, which lasted through Christmas night, became known as the Christmas Truce.
They very often played soccer and swapped pictures of families and then went back to killing each other the next day. It was really a moment of 1914, seldom repeated.
Dear students, I hope you enjoyed the video. And this is how celebrating Christmas at the time of World War in 1914. This has become a great news actually everywhere. You could see many newspapers, the media, they have highlighted this news. And this is actually the sign of the people who say that the war, they propose the wars, they fight the wars, or the advocates the war. Actually, how much they are wrong. That everybody wants peace, nobody wants war. Actually, this is the basic idea of being human. As we have the families, as we have the society, that we have civilized, we are civilized one. Okay, human being, we are civilized people, and civilization that doesn't contain war or violence. If we are civilized, it means that there is no war, there is no violence. Peace prevails in the civilization. And if there is no peace in any case civilization, we cannot say it is as a civilization. It can be called as barbarism, jungle raj. So after this World War, even the many soldiers who were fighting the wars, when they return, they have written about their war experiences. And in their writing too, in literature, a lot of literature is there that shows that how futile this war is, and how badly these all soldiers, whatever, whichever the countries, whether it is British, whether it is Germany, whether it is Russia or Japan or any country. So these all soldiers, these all army people, though they were fighting, so it was their helplessness that they had to fight, but they all longed, they all wished for peace and not for war. Even some soldiers, some officers, army officers, after coming back from the First World War, many of them have become the writers, well-known writers. So, and they have written a lot of literature about uh, promoting uh, no war policy, pacifism. So they become pacifist. So a literature of pacifism is was in trend after First World War. So that is why students keep in mind, never support any kind of war, whether it is the war of Pakistan and India or Pakistan, India and China. So war cannot bring any kind of solution. This is what all the great person, your Albert Einstein, your Mahatma Gandhi, your APJ Abdul Kalam, or whoever taken any philosopher, any great person, they themselves will say that war that cannot bring any kind of solution. Even Chakravarti Samrat Ashok also had left war after when he saw that what war could bring. So he adopted peace after that. Okay, let us go towards our next text and see. Now coming to the next part of the text, let us read it. Next para. You cannot imagine, dear Sconi, my feelings as I looked into the eyes of faith officer, who approached me, hand outstretched. Hans Ulf, he said, gripping my hand warmly and holding it. I am from Dusseldorf. I play the cello in the orchestra. Happy Christmas, he said. Now, as everybody came there and they were wishing one another Happy Christmas. So, as our narrator was also an officer, a British officer, the German officer also came. His name was Hans Ulf. Hans Ulf. And he came there and he outstretched his hand. Outstretched means extended his hand for shaking. So he outstretched his hand and he's saying that I am from Dusseldorf. Hans Ulf, his name was Hans Ulf, and he is from Dusseldorf. Dusseldorf is the area in German, a region in Germany. So, and he said that what was his profession. He said that I play the cello in the orchestra, and he wished him Happy Christmas. And when he shook his hand, it was very warm. No, the enmity was not there. Warmth is the sign of love. Warmth, that feeling, is the feeling of love and affection. So affectionately, so lovingly, he took and shook his hand, both the officers, and he wished him Happy Christmas. In the next para, see, what did he say? Captain Jim Macpherson, I replied, and a Happy Christmas to you too. I'm a school teacher from Dorset in the west of England. Now see the students, Jim Macpherson, Captain Jim Macpherson has introduced himself, and he said that I am from Dorset, which is the west part of England, as we have also seen earlier that it is the same city, the city from where our narrator has taken that a roll top test. Presently, we are in flashback. We are reading the letter of Jim Macpherson to Mrs. Jim Macpherson, and this is the past event that is mentioned in the letter. And after many years, this letter was found by our narrator. You might have noted, students, here one very striking thing is that when both these officers are introducing themselves, they introduce themselves that our narrator was a school teacher. He said, I am a school teacher from Dorset. And the officer from German was a cello player, and a cello is an instrument that is played in orchestra. So I am a cello player in orchestra, he said. So the by profession they are not soldier. In many countries, uh, what happened in at the time of the World War, that every common citizen had to fight the war, and even in countries like Israel and such European countries, that everybody has to go for war if the time comes that they have been trained. Their schooling will not be complete unless the training of war is complete. So everybody is trained for war. Everybody is trained as a soldier, and basically their profession may be different one. So when the nation demands, when comes the time of nation call, so they may be called to fight the war. So that was the situation earlier. So our narrator was a school teacher, and the officer, the German officer, was a cello player in an orchestra. So they very warmly they met and wished Happy Christmas to each other. When Jim Macpherson introduced himself, let us see. That was it. He smiled. I know this place. I know it very well. We shared my rum ration and his excellent sausage. We talked, Connie, how we talked. He spoke almost perfect English, but it turned out that he had never set foot in Dorset, never even been to England. He had learned all he knew of England from school and from reading books in English. His favorite writer was Thomas Hardy. His favorite book, far from the madding crouch. So out there in no man's land, we talked of Bathsheba and Gabriel Oak and Sergeant Troy and Dorset. He had a wife and one son, born just 6 months ago. As I looked about me, there was hurdles of khaki uh, and grey everywhere, all over no man's land, smoking, laughing, talking, drinking, eating. Hans Wolf and I shared what was left of your wonderful Christmas cake, Connie. He thought the marzipan was the best he had ever tasted. I agreed. We agreed about everything, and he was my enemy. There never was a Christmas party like it, Connie. See how beautifully the narrator is, the writer, Captain Jim Macpherson is writing this later, and in the beginning, in the beginning of the paragraph, we are told that they shared the rum. Rum is a kind of wine. Rum ration is a kind of rum, or that may be also called as wine. And sausage is a food, packaged food, um, meat food actually. So they started talking, and this German officer was knowing the perfect English, and he said when he said that Dorset, so he became very happy, and he said that I knew this place very much, but later it came to him that he had never been to the Dorset in England, but he knew it. And how did he know it? That it was from the books that he read in English, and his favorite writer, English writer, was Thomas Hardy. You must know, dear children, this is Thomas Hardy. He's a very famous writer for his many books, and his one of the famous book is Far from the Madding Crowd and the Test of D'Urberville. And he had written at least 10 to 12 books, uh, and all these books now he is known for his writing or description of this particular area, Dorset, the west part of England. So, D'Urberville, Dorset, this area is described in his books, and he described in such a way in this book. If the chance comes, no, please do read the books of Thomas Hardy. And when you will read these books now, I am sure that the complete city, complete the village, the countryside that is described by Thomas Hardy, or whether it is of Dorset, or whether it is of D'Urberville, of any other west part of England, the and it will come before your eyes as if you know it, every part of this countryside, every village. So what is described there? The mountains, the rivers, and the forest and wood and farms. So everything you knew. It seems that as if you are living there. So such a beautifully described uh, area description uh, you could found in Thomas Hardy's book, and that is why I know this German officer also says that Dorset, and I know this place. Actually, he had never been there in England, but through the books of Thomas Hardy, he knew about Dorset, and far from Madding Crowd was the his favorite book and is famous also. So out there in a no man's land means the area between two armies when the battle or the war is going on. So there used to be a particular distance between two armies. So that distance is called as no man's land. So out there in no man's land, everybody came and they both, we're talking of Bathsheba, Gabriel O, Sergeant Roy, and Dorset. This Bathsheba, Gabriel Oak, and Sergeant Roy these are the main characters from this novel, his favorite book, Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. So main characters these are. So they talked of they talked of the book, they talked of these characters, they talked of the Dorset that is described in Thomas Hardy's books, and Dorset that uh, our narrator knew. So he also tells they have also shared their personal things also. The narrator said that German officer was having a wife and one son who was just born 6 months ago. See the situation, students. Soldier is there, an officer is there, and just before 6 months, he had got a son. See how unfortunate it is that we have this soldier have to leave their wife and leave their sons and daughters and mothers and father behind, and they have to come for fight, and nobody knows what will happen, which bullet would come and take their life. So this was the situation they were sharing. The enemies actually they were, and they were enemies. So and not only this officer, only our narrator and German officer. Everybody was talking, drinking, laughing, eating, and sharing and celebrating the Christmas in no man's lands. So Hansel said that right when he shared the cake that is prepared by Connie, that German officer said that I thought that the marzipan was the best he had ever tasted. Marzipan is actually the, up, the upper layer or the covering of the cake. Nowadays, this marzipan is not used in the cake because the creams uh, is coming nowadays. They have changed the style that cream we are applying it. But earlier, this marzipan was there on the cake. Even now, also, if you go to the remote areas, this kind of marzipans you could see on the cake. So they shared everything, and many things that marzipan was the best. They agreed each other. The enemies agreed on a term. See, enemies should not agree with each other, but they agreed. And such a beautiful party, the Christmas party, he never had. Our narrator describes. Let us go to the next text. Then someone, I don't know who, brought out a football. Great coats were dumped in piles to make the goalpost. These great coats means the German soldiers, and they were dumped in piles. Dumped in piles means they gathered together. They gathered together to make the goalpost. So in crowd, gathered together in crowd. So they make the goalpost somehow, and the next thing that they started playing. The next thing we knew it was Tommy against Frizz out in the middle of the no man's land. So two things. Match is going on, football match was going on. So Hans Ulf and I looked on and cheered and clap our hands and stamping our foot to keep out the cold as much as anything. So These two officers, they didn't play it, but everybody was playing there on the ground. The other soldiers were playing on the ground. And both officers, they were cheering for their teams, cheering for their mates, and tapping their hands and feet. The cold was there, na? So the warmth should be created. So if you keep moving and tapping your hands and feet, so your body will be warm. So there was a moment when I noticed our breeze mingling in the air between us. Beautiful line. This is the one of the best, one of the most beautiful line in this chapter. There was a moment when I noticed our breeze mingling in the air between us. Some bits of two enemies, Germans and British. That was a very symbolic line. So the air that we breathe, know that it is the same. We breathe the common air. So for what we are fighting, isn't it? We fight the wars for what? The same year we breathe, on the same land we live. We don't have boundaries, The nature haven't created boundaries. We have created boundaries. So, very symbolic in suggesting a line that our bliss mingling in the air between us. He saw it too and smiled. Jim McPherson, he said after a while, I think this is how we should resolve this war. A football match. No one dies in the football match. No children are orphaned. No wives becomes widow. See the children. How this is actually the secret of the war. No, we glorify the wars. We glorify the sacrifice of the soldiers. We glorify when the soldiers dies on the battlefield. Uh, but actually, there is not even a single soldier in any army on the back of the world that wants war. This is only the citizens like us who wants war. The politicians, they want war. But the soldiers know they don't want. They don't want war actually. Yes, sometimes the situation comes that they have to take the revenge. They have to prove themselves. That is why they sometimes it seems that they support the war. But actually, the truth is that the bitter truth is that nobody wants that their children, their wives, their family should become orphan. And you know, the war should be there. This is the basic instinct of human being. Okay, who wants to lose our loved ones, our family members? Neither family members want to lose us, and nor we want to lose our family members. And soldiers are not the exception. So this is the bloody political game of war for power and money, and the poor army and soldiers they die. And see what this man, this officer, German officer, one of the very rigid and fascist nation. It is known as the most fundamentalist in the nationalism. This nation is known for. But the officer from this German nation is saying that I think the problems should be resolved, the war should be resolved with the match. The football match they will play by the match, a football match. And nobody dies if we resolve our problems, whatever the conflicts that we have. If we play the match for that, even if you had read the autobiography of Gautam Buddha, when he has taken sannyasa, Gautam Buddha, from his state and he left his kingdom. At that time also, this he left his kingdom because of one of the war that he doesn't want to have, and for that he had a proposed game that should be played. So the same idea here. So the match should be played, he said, because no children becomes orphan and no wife become windows. A beautiful idea and very core of this psychology of war among the soldiers. But we force them, we impose this war on them. Okay, let us come to the next part of our chapter. I would prefer cricket. I told him. Then we Thomas could be sure of winning probably. We laughed at that, and together we watched the game. So actually, this cricket game belongs to the Britishers, and it seems to they are master of it. So their game it is. So the narrator, sorry, or this Captain Jim McPherson said that I would prefer cricket instead of football because it is their game. So the officer said, then Tommies would be sure of winning. The Britishers would win. Tommies, matlab Britishers. So we laughed at that, and together we watched the game. Sad to say, Connie freeze one, 2 goals to one. So the German soldiers they won by 2 goals to one. But as Hans of General say, our goal was wider than theirs, so it wasn't quite fair. So he agreed, and so the officer agreed that their goal was wider than theirs. Okay, so it was quite fair. It wasn't quite fair, so it was a kind of cheating. He agreed that. So such kind of agreement is found between two enemies. How funny it is. The time came, and all too soon, when the game was finished, the schnapps and the rum and the sausage had long since run out, and we knew it was all over. I wished Hans well and told him I hoped he could see his family again soon, and the fighting would be end, and we could go home. So this is the wish of the soldiers. They shared everything, rum, and they finished everything. The sausage and snaps and rum, they run out. They were finished. They celebrated it fully, and finally, he wished the Jim McPherson, the Captain Jim McPherson, wished that uh, he will return his home. He will see his family soon. The next day, they are going to fight the war. They are going to kill each other, but still, he is wishing that he will go to Rome and see his family. So, see what goes on there, what they were doing is different, and what they wish is different. They wish that nobody should die, everybody should go home, everybody should see the family, but they are forced to fight the war for nations. So, and they wish that very soon this war will end and they will go. I think that is what every soldier wants on both sides, Hans would say. And it was right on both the sides. Whatever the country is, the soldiers they never want the war. Take care, Jim McPherson. I shall never forget this moment, nor you. He saluted and walked away from slowly and unwillingly. I felt. He felt that he was walking slowly and going because, but he was not going willing. He was not willing to go away. So he turned to wave just once and then became one of the hundreds of grey-coated men drifted back towards their trenches. So after the football match, after the wishing and celebration, they had gone back to their trenches. Celebration was over. That night, back in our dugouts means trenches, we heard them singing carol. So they were singing carol. Carol is a song that they generally sing as a kind of prayer. So singing it quite beautifully. It was still night. Still night. On the book, your two different kind of words is given because it is written like Stillenacht, but read as yes, sorry, still night, silent night. It is silent night. So our boys gave them a rousing chorus of White Shepherd watched. So these prayers at the time of the um, Christmas, so they were singing these songs. They were singing. We exchanged carols for a while, and then we fell silent. We had our time of peace and goodwill, a time I will treasure as long as I live. And yes, on the battlefield, They were celebrating, he says. So they even in their trenches also, they prayed and song, sing the song, and they shared. They were replying each other through the chorus. Dearest Connie, by Christmas time next year, this war will be nothing but a distant and terrible memory. I know from all that happened today how much both armies long for peace. We should be together again soon, I am sure, or sure of it. Your love is you. So, at the end, he finished his letter by saying that no soldier, nobody wants war, everybody wants peace. And every army there, at the both side of army, they long for peace. And he said that this long, very soon, this war will be finished, and this will be a long and terrible memory, a bad kind of dream, kind of nightmare. So that will be past. I'm sure of that. I will be coming soon. He said, "We shall be together again soon." Means I will come to you. He said. So this was the end of our second chapter. I hope that you have understood it. Uh,